Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mupo and Friends. Our special guest today is an actor, director, writer, and has also been the force behind getting many actors cast in prominent roles. You've seen him in Birthday Cake, Magic Mike, Crossing Jordan, and Selma, to name a few. Please welcome Chad Darnell. Hello, Chad.
Hello.
Hey, we're
Hi.
excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here.
Welcome to Mupo.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're definitely honored that you're here. And I just want to know what it's like working, like I should say, growing up in Georgia, because that's where they do so many shows now.
Yeah. Well, when we start, I when I graduated high school in 1991, there was like an influx of films, but like leading up until that, there really wasn't. We had the TV show In the Heat of the Night and I'll Fly Away. And then a couple of movies like RoboCop 3 and like Fried Green Tomatoes was shooting down near Peachtree City. So it wasn't like it is now. And even throughout the 90s, it would be like there would be a year where there'd be like 4 films and then like 2 years with no films. And then I was ready to move to California in 98 because there were no films. And then suddenly 99, we had like Remember the Titans and Road Trip and The Gift down in Savannah. We had Forrest Gump. So it wasn't like it is now where like you can't swing a bat and hit 5 films out your front door. It's, well, of course, now in COVID, it's a little less, but yeah, it's an insane industry here now.
Awesome. So, what inspired and helped you to get started into the entertainment business?
I started off as a little kid actor. So I did theater. I was a camel in the church musical. And then I begged and pleaded with my parents to let me audition for this local children's theater company called the Dorval Arts Theater. And from the time I was like 8 until the time I was about 16, 17, until my freshman year in high school, I was doing that. I was learning how to dance, theater, musical theater. We would travel around the state doing performances in malls and schools and also performing at the theater itself. And then when I got into high school, we were doing plays every 6 weeks. So I went and, I kind of broke off from the children's theater and I was doing high school theater. And then into college, I was doing college theater. But when I got into college, that's how I fell into casting because I was working as an extra on I'll Fly Away. And I was like Jeremy London's mute friend. I was always there, but I was never talking. And then one day it looked like our hair was growing out. So we began to look like the same person. And one of the DPs said, I think maybe we should have Chad start standing in on the show. And so I don't know how I got through 4 years of college, but I did. But I would stand in on days that I wasn't working. I'd work in the extras casting office on the other days. And I kind of put myself through college doing that. Like I would work as an extra and a stand-in, work as a casting assistant. And then I said I was in casting and I did that through college. I went to work for Turner for a couple of years in development, got back into casting and then moved out to LA and I moved out to LA to be a writer and start working on scripts and get back into acting. And I was doing a little bit of theater here and there in the 90s, but it was the casting that kept sucking me back in. And to this day, it seems to be one of those things where I'm out of casting, and then it's like I got a job. It's like I'm hungry, and so so it seems to be the thing. Like, this has not been a great. I mean, it's not been a great year for anybody. But like to start off the year with like I was in a really great play here in Atlanta, Moonlight Magnolias, and then I was flying back and forth each after the Sunday matinee to prep my film, shot my film, my film, which we'll talk about later, and then to have nothing. We were casting Florida Girls, which got canceled, and then to have nothing. I'm grateful for a casting gig that's coming up, and then start directing again. But yeah, I've been acting and casting and directing and writing my whole life.
Nice.
What is it like working as a casting director with actors? What I know a lot of actors are going to want to know, what do casting directors look for, and what things do you absolutely not want them to do?
That's such a great question. Thank you for asking, because as an actor, I know, I think we all like hang on every word that the casting director says from the moment they walk into the door. When they walk out, it's like, oh, they hated me because they didn't smile at me. It's like, you have no idea the 20 conversations that we had the moment before you walked in. And as a casting director, we just want you to come in, take your shot, and make it your role. Even if you don't think that you're right for the role, we need it, because it may not be about this role. It may be about another role that we're looking at you for. And that's happened a lot on set or in the room, where like I'll hear actors, they'll be ballsy enough to come in and say like, I'm not right for this role. And you just want to say, it's not about this role. It's about this other role that we're reading you for as well. And you never know the mechanics of like what is in the casting director's head. But I know that having been in casting, that has made me a better actor. And because I always know that it's not necessarily about this role, it's about the next role. And if you make the role your own in this audition, they're going to see you for other things down the road. I mean, I got an audition last week and I read it and I'm like, I mean, I know exactly who they're going to cast, and I can't wait to see the episode to know that's who they cast. But I mean, I'm grateful for the audition and the opportunity to read in front of that casting director, which I normally didn't. It's one of my favorite shows. But you know, I gave it my all, and I watched the audition. I'm like, yeah, that was good. Like, if they're looking for your flavor, that's what they're going to buy. But it's always a challenge. And of course, as a casting director, there are other casting directors that don't want to read me. So I know I run into that a lot of times, because I'm either their competition or they were up for a film and I ended up getting the film and it was 7 years ago. So I deal with that a lot too. And I think part of my frustration, which we'll talk about later, is not getting cast. That's why I was like, screw it. I'm just going to go off and do my own film. Like I did with Birthday Cake, and like what I did with John Cameron Mitchell's play Forced, which I did back during quarantine. It was quarantine theater. John Cameron Mitchell, who did Hedwig and the Angry Inch, he wrote a short play that was meant to be produced over the internet called Forced, and it was about his experience taking Hedwig and the Angry Inch to Russia. The film, taking that film to Russia, and that experience at the Gay and Lesbian Film Festival there, and so it was very meta, having played Hedwig twice and then playing John Cameron Mitchell talking about Hedwig. And it was a really great, we did it as a benefit for a couple of charities, and it was a great opportunity.
I think it's great to start your own vehicle, your own.
After,
You have more control that way. You don't have to deal with all the BS and the politics that go on in the industry at times. So
yeah.
Now, you've done a lot of work, obviously, and you're very big in the theatrical community in Savannah. Why don't you share some of the events that you do in Savannah that you've actually created? And
Well, not only just Savannah, because I lived in Savannah for, how long was I there for? On and off for 5 years, 4.5, 5 years. Because when I was hired to do Magic Mike XXL, to cast that, they shot in Savannah and then one day in Myrtle Beach. There wasn't a film community, so I had to like go in and start teaching. Well, sorry, there was a film community, but there was not what it is now. There were people that were making short films on the weekends, and that's great. That's what you should be doing, like we just talked about. But as far as like having an actor go toe-to-toe with Channing Tatum, they just didn't have the experience then. So I started Base Camp Savannah, and I would teach. I would bring in other teachers to teach, and we really did grow the market. I now on a project, if I'm casting, I can cast a lot of people from Savannah, depending on the type of film that it is. If it's not, like Lizzie, the Kristen Stewart movie, Lizzie, they wanted to cast 90% of the movie there. Well, we don't have a lot of older men who can act, and that whole movie was about older men. And I think I had 2 women in that entire film. And of course, they wanted them all to have their own beards and their own mutton chops, as if anybody has that in Savannah in 1998 or whatever, or 2008, whatever, or 2013, whatever the year was. So I did that, and then I've been teaching all around. But I found one of the ways that my personal being of service is using theater and using the live audiences to put attention on charities, such as when here in Georgia, when we got involved with, we had a couple years ago, our governor was trying to change the anti-abortion laws here in Georgia. And for a lot of my friends and myself, that was not really great. And especially when we had a lot of actors screaming, boycott Georgia, don't go to Georgia and shoot, boycott. We live here. Like, I moved back here to work, and, I might move back to LA soon, but I mean, this is my home. And so what we did is I started a project called the Lysistrata Project, which we did a staged reading version of Lysistrata in Savannah, and we did one in Atlanta. In Atlanta, we had cast members from The Walking Dead, Dynasty, The Resident, all the major shows, and we raised a lot of money for Planned Parenthood and the ACLU. And just Sunday, I got the whole cast of Crossing Jordan back, which was one of the shows that I did the extras casting on. I was the extras casting director for the first 5 seasons. And then I was the showrunner's assistant the last season, which is like the greatest. If you could ever be the showrunner's assistant, it's the greatest job on the set, because it's like you're the wall. You know, in William Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream, the wall that the character.
Right.
Because if the crew needs to get to the showrunners but don't want to go directly to them, they talk to the assistant. If the cast has a problem, they go to the showrunner's assistant. No, it's like you're diffusing all the bombs for people. And if the showrunners want to get something out, you know, and talk to them, I would relay the messages. You know, if you hear on set, like there's a problem, you go to set and say, hey, can I buy you a latte? Suddenly everything's fine. I mean, it's it was the greatest, and you learn. And I was the only person in the writer's office who had been on the show all 6 seasons. So like the writers would start pitching episodes. I'm like, yeah, that was episode 203. Yeah, that was the first season. So it was so much fun. We were such a family on that show. And having just moved from Georgia, like that really was a second family to me. And so we recorded a Zoom cast reunion with all of our cast. And then I brought in some of the crew members. And you will hear the cast talk about what a family we were. And they're calling up crew members that were on the show 14 years ago. And we did that as a benefit for Stacey Abrams' Fair Fight. So it'll be on probably by the time you see this, crossingjordanfairfight.com. You'll see the hour-and-a-half long reunion. And then if you want to donate to Fair Fight, donate to Fair Fight.
Tell us about the Fair Fight.
Stacey Abrams started Fair Fight to help establish and to educate people about voting, not only in Georgia, but all around the country. And so it's to help people register. It's to help report if your vote is not going through, or you feel like your vote is being suppressed. You can go to Fair Fight and report it, and they will take care of it. It's a really important organization, especially now since we went from boycott Georgia to Georgia's gonna, is now the most important state in play. So I have to say it's funny to me now to have these celebrities that 2 years ago were like boycott Georgia. Now it's like, Georgia, we're thinking of you, and Georgia's on my mind. It's like, you know what you did. You know what you said.
You know what you did before. You have an interesting story from one of the people that was in the reunion, Jerry. Please share that. What you were sharing with us backstage.
Well, I mean, it's funny. Like, I think the most beautiful woman on the planet is Rebecca Romaine, his now wife, and the entire cast knew that I am obsessed with her. I mean, it's not healthy. And I love her. And I wrote a short film about her that Jerry knew about, and he never told her what the story was about, which was hilarious. And so when they started dating, this is like I want to say they started dating season 5. Yeah, it had to have been season 5 because I was still doing extras casting. And so my phone would blow up every time she was on set. And my office, I worked at Central Casting. So I was like 3 miles down the street. And like because of all the shows that I was working on, like I could never just go to set to meet her. And there was one day that we were on Alias, I think it was season 5. Could have been season 4. Because I also cast Alias. We were gonna do body painting on a whole bunch of extras. And so we had a really long production meeting, but we had the best craft service truck of any show I'd ever worked on. And Tamiko, who made the tuna salad, was the best tuna salad you've ever had in your entire life. So I was just needed the tuna salad sandwich, and it wasn't ready yet, and my blood sugar levels like all like zapped out. And so I walk onto the soundstage. It was our police soundstage, stage 37. And Jerry, it was like a whole bunch of guys working that day. And I walk in, and there's this woman sitting there with a pink bandana on and a pink sweater, a pink sweatshirt, and everybody's acting really weird. Like Jill was acting weird, and Mary Donna, our script supervisor, acting weird. And I'm sitting in the director's chair like, next to this woman. And Mary goes, have you met my friend Becca? And I turned to her and said, hi, I'm Chad. Nice to meet you. And but I was talking to them about the body paint. It's like, oh, it's a long meeting. I'm just hungry. And Becca said, oh, who's doing the body painting? And I look at her and said, some guy named Bob. And she's, oh, Bob. Everybody knows Bob. And the way she said it was like, how would you know Bob? Like it's, of course she was Mystique. She was Mystique in the X-Men. It was spray painted blue for 3 movies. And so I'm looking at her, I'm like, she looks vaguely familiar, but I don't have any women working today, well, because I had to cast the stand-ins. I'm like, so I turned to her and I said, are you guest starring in this episode? Are you working? And she was, oh, no, I don't have any responsibilities. And the way she said it, it's like I knew exactly. And again, pink bandana, sweatshirt, like she was not covered in blue. She wasn't in like some gown or anything. And I was like, oh my God, like I couldn't talk. Oh my God, I know who you are. I'm so sorry, I know who you are. And like Mary Donner fell out of her chair laughing, which everybody on set turns around to see. And at that point, they just see me doing this, and they all start laughing because they all knew. And she's looking at everybody like, what's wrong? I said, I'm so sorry. I'm Chad Darnell. I did the extras casting. And she goes, you're the guy. And I said, I'm the guy what? She goes, you wrote a movie about me, and Jerry wouldn't tell me what it was about. It's like, no, what she's like, and so she's like, I want to read the script. And so we became, little buddies after that. I mean, she was.
And the name of the movie? Tell everyone the name of the movie.
Again, at the time, remember, she was Rebecca Romaine Stamos. She was Stamos at the time. Rebecca Romaine Stamos ruined my life. And so I told her what the concept of the movie was. And she laughed so much. She's like, that's hitting a little too close to home. And I was like, really? And she goes, yeah. And then every time I would see her, she would be like, where's my script? Where's my script? And she loved the concept because it was very like being John Malkovich. And so she's awesome. They both are. I mean, they have these 2 beautiful twin daughters now that, I think it's like God's way of like, of just Jerry O'Connell's karma. He's got these 2 beautiful daughters now that are on TikTok, and they're both such great parents, and it's but it's hilarious to see, like they were driving past. When you see the video, he's like, because they live out in the middle of nowhere. You see the daughters drive by, flipping them off. They're great.
Awesome. So I want to talk about the film Birthday Cake. I know you that's an award-winning short film, and I want to know about it and how you were able to get Jane Badler to work on that project, because that was cool. That was really cool.
So we did it with Birthday Cake was a feature film sequel, but Groom's Cake was the short film. So we did this little short film, and it was shot mockumentary style. And I think it's actually going to be I think it's premiering on Here TV next month, both the short and the feature film. I think you can still find it on Amazon, but I wouldn't recommend it. No. I mean, the thing is, like, it's a cute movie, but I mean, we did it in 2013. I mean, it was a movie that we were doing about marriage equality. And about adoption. And so it's already it was a period film the year that it came out and released, because President Obama like made marriage equality the law of the land with the Supreme Court. And suddenly like a week before my movie came out, I'm like, thanks, cool. Thank you, thanks, everyone.
Next.
But so the short film was shot documentary style. And because we shot it in like 2 days, $2,000 budget, but it looks really low budget, and that was the whole point. And so we played that in the festival circuit, and people loved it because they thought it was real. And meanwhile, Desmond Child, the musician, the musician, his husband has it looked like $1 million documentary about he and his husband adopting. And like my little short is like beating them, and it was all fake. But it was funny to go to these festivals, and like the first question that everybody asks is like, "How's your baby now?" And it's like, I don't know.
How's Jane? You that was great. That was great. I saw her part in it.
So then after Groom's Cake, we decided to do a full-length feature sequel. So that was 5 days. And then Jane's Day was actually a half day that we did just with her. And I, of course, was the biggest Jane Badler fan from V growing up. And I even started, oh God, I started this little, I hope she doesn't watch this. She knows about it. I started this stupid little, oh God. I started a fan club when I was like 12 called the Rebel Resistance. I don't even know that I was 12. I could have been 8.
Alana's a big fan too.
Let's say you were 8.
I was probably 8. God, I was probably 8. Oh God, I'm getting hot now. And you know, Jane, I didn't think, because I think at this time she was living in Australia. And so, yeah, I'm pretty sure she was in Australia. And so when I had originally written the sequel, my character is a screenwriter. And the original concept was that he is rebooting, I'm very powerful. He's rebooting the TV show Dynasty, which of course, you know, now there's the reboot of Dynasty. So, you know, Dallas was in the process that, you know, they had rebooted Dallas. So my character is rebooting Dynasty, and my character has decided to kill off Joan Collins in the opening scene of the show, but they were going to bring Joan Collins into it. So the whole joke was going to be that Joan Collins is reading 8 pages of her death scene. Because I met Joan, we had this really great weekend in Palm Springs together, and I just met her like months earlier, and she wanted to work with me on something, and I'm still hoping that works out. But I sent her the script, and she, through her manager, she's like, she loved the script, she loved the character, but she's shooting something in England, and she's like, can you wait 2 months? I'm like, no, I can't. And so then I was like, oh, I wonder if I can get Jane Badler. And so I was stalking her through Twitter, and then she somehow followed me at some point and said, oh, we should work together sometime. I said, well, as a matter of fact. And so I rewrote the entire script. So instead of it being Dynasty, it was my character had created a ripoff of the TV show Smash called, God, what was the show called? It was Big Break or something. Diva. It was some, whatever it was a, you know how Smash, the musical was about Marilyn Monroe.
Right.
In my movie, the musical was about Elizabeth Taylor. So Jane Badler would have been playing Elizabeth Taylor. And so Jane Badler is playing herself in the movie, like Joan Collins would have. And of course, Jane sings, and it's a musical. And so, and again, to think like it's 2013 now, I mean, it's 2020 now, this is 2013. So part of what she loved, and she's like, make it go bigger, make it go bigger. But things now, it's like, we never would have done this. We never would have done this. Because my character, when he gets drunk, he does things that he doesn't remember. He wrote an entire song about AIDS. And Jane Badler in the movie sings a song about AIDS and about how all of her friends died of AIDS as Elizabeth Taylor. And at the time, nobody was, because I would ask all the film festival people, and you know, these were gay and lesbian film festivals we were going, and nobody because it's so absurd. It's so absurd. And the song, and people laughed. I mean, it was like, but it was like very dark humor. And, but Jane and I were talking about that recently. Like, I can't believe we did that song. I mean, it's like, but it was a different time in 2013. And just, I don't know what was in the cosmos at that time, but she was amazing. And we became good buddies after that. Like, we've been trying to find something to work on. She produced her movie down in Savannah, the one with, what's the name of that? She produced it. It was with Brooke Shields. Let's say Lily.
I can't think. I don't know. We were supposed to have her on the show last season, but then she lives in Australia. We have to get her on.
Yeah.
Maybe we should have the two of you on together.
Oh my God, that'd be amazing. And
That'd be fun.
This lovely movie. And then the director, unfortunately, committed suicide. And so Jane had to finish the movie like in post. And it's a beautiful movie, and it's a beautiful tribute to that director. And then, yeah, I mean, Jane's, I sent her the script installation, which I will be doing in January. And this was like several years ago. And Jane, she calls me immediately. She's like, I want you to rewrite this as a straight woman, and I want to play the role. I'm like, sorry, baby, this is my movie. I'm doing this role myself. She's great. I love her to death.
I could see her doing that because she's very powerful.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be fun. Like, you almost kind of like want to shoot the version of this with Jane Badler, because the thing about the characters in this, it's not about, it's in a weird way, it would be interesting to see like what a straight couple would do in the situation as opposed to what a gay couple would do in the same, without changing any of the lines, because it's not about sexuality. It's about the dynamics of this relationship. No, she's great. I love her to death. And then she came to festivals, like she came to Palm Springs, and we had a great weekend in Palm Springs together. I mean, she's one of the kindest people that I know, and one of the most encouraging people that I know too. And she's always encouraging me, and I love her to death.
She's extremely talented.
Yeah.
She is.
So tell us about, you had a script you wrote, Darlene.
Oh, this is a good conversation. Oh, you're getting some scoop. You have no idea. Oh,
Like scoops.
Oh my God. Well, this will be the only time I ever talk about it. So I was hired years ago. So this was right after the 2016 election. So, people were like very discombobulated about what's happening. And so I wrote this I got hired to write the socio-political movie about this insane woman who lives in a trailer park. And it was, without going into details about what that movie is, because I don't want to give an idea away, because I'm abandoning that idea, and I am taking all of those characters and putting them into a completely different movie. But I wrote the first, because it was at the time, there was a time constraint to the initial investment and to get it into production. I was told that they would be shooting by May, and this was February. So like I had to write fast, and I got Mary Lambert, who directed Pet Sematary and Pet Sematary 2. She's done a lot of episodic. Mary was going to direct it, but I got her hooked within the first 25 pages of the script. So I over the weekend, I read the first 25 pages. Noon on Monday, she said, if the rest of the script is this good, I'm in. And that Friday, I was in New York sitting down with her. We were doing the first rewrite. And we met with Andrew Keenan Bolger, who hopefully would have been one of the characters called Little Peter. And I love Andrew, and I was wishing that we could get him. So then over the years, like all of these, like as independent film is, like all these people come in and claim that they're going to give you the sun, the moon, and the stars, and then they just end up stealing money, or they're con artists, or they're not who they say they are. And these people just kept coming in and out of the orbit of this film for years. And it just got to the point where it's like, this movie is cursed. It's never going to happen. And it was all on the side. It was a low budget film start, and like $1.5 million budget. But the people that we sent it to, like everybody wanted to be in. Hari Neff was an actress. She was going to play Darlene, I actually wrote it originally. You're getting the scoop. I wrote it in mind for my friend Ashley Fink, who was on Glee. I wrote it with Ashley in mind. Wow. And but they ended up casting Hari because she was in Assassination Nation, and they thought she had more value. And I mean, I like Hari, but like physically, I wrote it in mind with Ashley. And then Debbie Ryan from Insatiable wanted to play Brandy. And then we had Ellen Barkin wanted to play the blind aunt. And it was,
love it.
It was a good story for 2017. But again, there's the big twist at the end that in 2020, you cannot do this movie. And when I was in LA in July, I sat down and had dinner with Mary Lambert's agent, and they're like, we want the script back. And, when the extension's done and we're going to go to these, I said, no. I said, when the rights revert back to me, I'm killing this thing. I'm killing it dead. It's never going to see the light of day. You can't make this movie in 2020 because of where we are politically. And I'm going to take those characters and put them into another movie. And so that's what I'm doing right now. As soon as I get done with The Intelligent, I'm writing the process of writing. It's called Trailer Park Murder Club. And
oh, that sounds interesting.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it's going to be good. But I'm taking those same characters and they're in a completely different story now. But it's interesting to see like how, with dark comedies, you're playing on that tension, you're playing on the suspense, but you're also playing into the politics of what's happening at the time. And that was one of my first arguments, was that the original script they wanted to do, it wasn't right. It wasn't scary. There was no tension. Get Out had just come out. And I said, at this point, like, horror movies have to be about something sociopolitically. And I said, with these characters and said, you need to get out with 2 white chicks. And that was my pitch. And that's how I got
2
hired.
white chicks. But does that ever happen a lot though, where you'll write a script and have people in mind and then they just put someone else in there? Because I've written a script myself and that has happened, and I said, I'm not doing it, then I'm not giving you the script. I took the NDA back. I was like, forget about it.
Yeah, well, I've learned not to be too proud about the casting because, I mean, I really, like, after I met Hari and I saw her do the reading, I mean, it's a completely different take on the character, and I like her. I mean, she would make a great, character. She'd be better in Trailer Park Murder Club. I mean, I would definitely write her into something for that. But Darlene, like in my head, Darlene was Darlene was Ashley Fink. And again, no offense to Hari Neff, none. It's just what is perceived, and I don't think Ashley would be offended by me saying this, but the value on Ashley Fink when you're selling an independent film versus the value perceived of Hari Neff at the time because of Assassination Nation and these other things. I think she was in You or Younger, one of those shows. Those are things that you have to consider when you're producing. And I mean, we're going through that right now where it's like we have a character that we have to cast that's number 3 on the call sheet. And it's like you're looking at these and they're name actors, but you're like, who has the more value? And it's like within a point. And then this person may be like, no, screw you. And I'm like, great, welcome aboard. So that's one of the things that sucks about the business of show when you're producing. It becomes the value of that actor and of the piece, and can you afford them? And like there's a project that I'm in my very near sometime working on. They have these actors they want for the film, and I'm like, you're never going to get that person. And they're like, well, I'm like, I will send the offer, and they will immediately respond back, no. It's like, I know, like,
You just
when
know.
you get, yeah. And like with my movie Installation, like, I can't wait to tell you like who we have, but we've got a bonkers good cast so far. And they're making, it's the SAG ultra low budget rate. So there's ultra low, there's modified low, there's low, and then there's the regular contract. And they're all doing it because they love the script. And so if you're gonna have an ultra low or a low or modified, it better be a good script if you're planning on getting people.
Yeah. So what would you say, like, because I know there's going to be people watching that are trying to break into the business.
Yeah.
So give them a little advice, because they
Right.
ask me, and I'm like, I'll ask them. I'll ask people that come on. I mean, like, I'm not the
Right.
one to tell you about that because I'm not the one funding the film.
Great. Yeah. No, the first thing that I would suggest is make sure that you've joined every Facebook acting page in your state and in your region. Like here in Atlanta, we've got Atlanta acting Facebook pages, Savannah Facebook pages, but then, you're just 3.5 hours to Nashville. You're 3.5 hours to Savannah. You're, Birmingham, Charleston. If you're in the Southeast, make sure that you're joining all of these pages. Make sure that you are on Actors Access. It's a yearly subscription. But if you're going to have an agent, you're going to have to join it anyway. So if you don't have an agent yet, you're starting out, join Actors Access, actorsaccess.com. I think you pay like $70 a year. You upload, and then you get charged for uploading other stuff like headshots and reels and stuff, but it's the industry standard. You'll have to join that. You'll have to join casting networks. And that's just every working actor that's out there, they are on those systems because Breakdown Services, which is the biggest, like if I'm like for this movie that I'm working on, I will send a breakdown out to Breakdown Services. All the agents and managers get that. And if I click on Actors Access, which is the same breakdown, so like Breakdown Services is only for agents and managers, Actors Access, it's the same mainframe. So it's like what's a good way of describing it? I mean, it's the same program, but it just depends on like where you push it to. You can push it to both, but if I push it just to Actors Access, the agents and the managers don't see it, but all the actors who are registered within that region will see it. And you can do your search like, I want to search within the Southeast market, or I want to search like within the New York market. And then you can also put in like, I want to be submitted I only want auditions that are paying gigs, that are union gigs. And you put all this in and you'll get like a daily email like from casting of what they're looking for. So make sure you've done that. And then make sure you you get involved in networking with all of these projects that are networking with production companies that are local to your area. Because like next weekend, I'm producing a documentary. I'm producing a PSA about voting here in Georgia. So we're trying to put together the crew right now, and it's a lot of people that have been networking with the other people that I'm working with. Making sure that you get involved in the 48-hour guerrilla film competitions that come through town, and create. This is a camera. You know, make your own, create your own work, and get it out there. Start your YouTube. Social media is important because it's a way of finding talent. And you know, as you are putting all this together, and you start to develop reels, and you start networking, people will start suggesting agents for you to get them to meet. But if you're just getting started out, know that unless you have some amazing followers on TikTok, or you've won all of these awards for the short or independent film that you did, agents really aren't going to take you, because unless you find like a new agent who's desperate for talent, because it's, especially in the Atlanta market, they're purging good working actors just because there's so many of them.
It's all about getting out of obscurity. So networking is very important now in the industry with all the platforms that we have. You actually won the 48-hour.
I did.
Yes.
I did. The one I went in Savannah for Isolate. We had when you do I really encourage people to do these, and just search 48-hour independent, 48-hour. No, it's called the 48-hour film. Just search 48-hour film. There's another word that's in there, like the 48-hour guerrilla film competition is an international one, and then there's another one, the 48-hour film festival. I don't know what it's called. But I did it in Savannah, and we pulled silent film. And they give you a line of dialogue. So they give you three things, like a character's name, a line of dialogue, and a prop. That way you can't start making your movie in advance. And then you pull the genre. And we pulled silent film. And of course, when you have a line of dialogue, how do you say a line of dialogue in a silent film? So we made my character deaf, and I won. We won for best line and best actor. And then in LA at the Guerrilla Film Competition, we had an incredible team, and they're all filmmakers now. They're all like doing Lifetime movies and Hallmark movies. But we pulled courtroom drama. It's like, well, how do you do a courtroom drama on a Saturday in a court? You know, so we did it in an elevator, and it was a courtroom drama in an elevator, and in a courthouse. And we won best score, and we were nominated for best film.
Oh, it sounds like fun, and it inspires people to think quick, to get on their toes, to take action.
It's so important. So important. Yeah. Which is why improv is so important too. Classes. The other thing, Michelle, back to your question, like if I'm getting started, classes. Reading, books. I mean, I have a stack of books that I you know, even now, like, I every day I'm like reading books about acting, listening to podcasts, like even Judith Weston, who she has a great book about directors. Actors should be listening to Audible books about directors, because those are the people that are trying to teach you what to get. So it's like be sure that you're listening to books about, or reading books about directing as well, and writing.
Excellent advice. Thank you for that.
So tell us about Mercy Street and its director, Jeremy Webb, who directed some favorite episodes in Downton Abbey.
Yeah, Jeremy Webb is one of the nicest guys on the planet. He and Roxanne Dawson, who also directed a lot of Crossing Jordan, she just did that movie. Why am I having? I can't remember anything. It was the movie with Chrissy Metz, and I think her kid was in the hospital. Unbelievable or Believable, or it was really.
I'm dumbfounded because I'm just mesmerized by you. I'm like so intrigued. Like, so
she's going to write a film about you too.
I should have said this. I'm going to write a hit song about you.
Thank you. Mercy Street was, again, like, I wish that the show had an opportunity to like lived on longer than the 2 seasons that we had, and also the more episodes. Like, I think we only had 6 episodes the first season. I think we had 8 the second season, and it was created by this incredible woman named Lisa Wolfinger. Thank God I remembered her name. Incredible. And she's like a history buff. And it was about this real medical hospital in Alexandria, Virginia. We shot in Richmond, Virginia, and Petersburg. I can't believe I'm remembering this stuff. It's like, I'm very old. And it's a Civil War medical drama. And so, of course, we're shooting in the middle of the summer, and everybody's in wool suits, and like all the women are in corsets. And it was, I mean, it was like Downton Abbey, the American, and that's exactly how PBS pitched it. It was PBS's version of Downton Abbey, and we would premiere after Downton Abbey as well. And we actually got to meet like Michelle Dockery and a couple of the cast members at a party one time. But it was such a great show about the medical traumas during the Civil War, and he was lovely. I mean, we had so many extras. We had to reuse a lot of the same extras, which it was like human Tetris, because in the hospital ward, which was basically a big house, because it was a house that this hospital was in. So these people, they got moved out of their house or upstairs, and then the house itself was just beds everywhere. So as we were like shooting each week, we'd have to remember like who was in which bed, which was a nightmare.
Wow.
It was a hotel, not a house. It was a hotel.
Sounds like a nightmare.
Hotel, yeah. The Green Hotel, yeah.
Let's talk about The Undertaker's Wife. And what did you love about directing this type of movie?
It was the movie when I finally realized I know what I'm doing. And I was like, that first day, I was like, I'm really good at this. Like at one point, like I had to like walk off, and I was like, you have to take that moment and be like, I've kept everybody alive. Like nobody's died yet, and it was a weird process because it happened so last minute. My producer, David Brown, had optioned the script several months earlier. And I was in rehearsals for Moonlight Magnolias, and I was playing David O. Selznick. And he's like, we're going November 17th. And I'm like, no, we're not, because I'm in rehearsals. Like I can't drop out now. There's only 3 of us in the cast. And I said, I can do it in February. But David and his partner were having babies that were due in March. And so they wanted to do the movie well in advance. So we ended up prepping in January. So I would have to fly after the matinee performance every Sunday, land, prep during the week, and then fly back on the red eye. And fly. So I was doing that the entire run of the show. And then we started shooting the Monday after we closed the play. And it was a short shoot. It was like I want to say it was a 15-day shoot. But we were in this big house for most of it. And it's about John Brotherton, and who's on, he's on all the Fast and Furious movies. He was on Fuller House, and Shannon Sossamon plays his wife. They are a married couple there's been tension in their marriage. They have a son. They lost a son 4 years ago in a drunk driving accident. And they move into this new historic funeral home in the South. They're the first people to take it over from the previous family, who had been in the generations for over 150 years. And when the first day they move in, this guy comes in and wants to plan a funeral. His brother was involved in a drunk driving accident and killed these kids. And of course, John's character's like, no, you got to get out of here, because my wife I can't have my wife like learning about this. She comes in, she won't do the funeral. The guy pulls a gun on them, and bad things happen. And so, it's this movie about trust in a relationship, and what happens between the two of them. And so we were in this house for like 11 of the 14 days. It was supposed to be a 15-day shoot, but I actually got it done a day early, which I never recommend doing. Never be the hero, because in my head, it's like, I can get this done in 14 days. No, don't do that. It's budgeted that way. You're only screwing yourself in the end. And then we were in the embalming room for 2 days, and then in a cemetery for a day. And it was a great experience. I mean, it's my script. I wrote the script, and I'm not in the film at all. But we had the best crew. My director of photography was incredible. The hair and makeup, Ayeva, like it was just a really, really great crew. and small crew. But the first day that I was in prep on in LA, that night I was staying with David and his partner in their big house in the hills because, you know, I'm flying back and forth doing the show, and their surrogate went into labor.
Wow.
3 months early. So they had to deal with 2 children that were in NICU for months. And while I'm directing a movie. So it was a real, oh, you know who else is in that movie? Mark Singer.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness.
wow.
Yeah, Mark.
Wow.
Oh my
Great,
God.
great
So
cast.
good. He's so good. And Sarah Colonna, who's an insatiable comedian. Ashley Fink. I got Ashley Fink in the movie. Mark Singer plays the sheriff, and he is just like, I was like, I'm never gonna get this guy. And his agent was even like, Mark doesn't work for this amount of money. Like, I'm like, I'm sorry, it's a low budget movie. It was, you know, we were low budget, but we weren't modified. It's like, it is what it is. But Mark, his agent called me back, and he's like, he's never done this before, but he wants to do it for you. And he loved your script. And then we had a docu-series that was filming the entire making of, and Mark, he did this, I got to see the interview, and it's this incredible, the things that he said about me were very, very kind. And I can't wait to work with him again. I mean, he's just the best.
Do you feel it's the connections, the relationships that you form with people that you seem to have a lot of that happening where people decide, I want to do his film. And people are thinking, oh, they'll never do that, but they end up doing it. Is it the way you build your relationships?
I think so. And I think it comes from the casting part of my life because who was it? April Webster. April Webster, my favorite casting director on the planet. We did Alias together for five years. And at some point during April, we would always sit next to each other in the production meetings. For over 100 production meetings, we sat right next to, and she'd pull out her letter opener and she would go through all of the mail that would get sent to the office. She would read every piece of mail that was sent from an actor. And and which never happens, especially
That's impressive.
Real mail. And she would make her piles like yes, no, or maybe. And the yes and the maybes, if it was like a showcase or like, you know, please, she would consider them. And she was always going to showcases. And I remember at one point somebody said, oh, we'll never get that person. And she said, well, we could ask. And I remember at one point, and that was early on, and that kind of stuck with me. And later, there was a role where it was Vivica Fox. And I think Kill Bill 2 was just coming out. And on the schedule-wise, it was just going to be coming out at the same time. We had Quentin Tarantino was like a recurring guest star on our show. And they were talking about who they were going to get for this role. And I said, what about Vivica Fox? And Sarah Kaplan, the producer, who did not particularly like me, she said, oh, we'd never get her. And I said, well, we could ask. And April was started laughing. And we got her. She was like, absolutely. She loved the show. She loved Quentin. She got to work with Quentin Tarantino right before the movie came out. So
she's an amazing actress.
Amazing, yeah, amazing. And it was so great, like seeing her on set and being like, I did that. That was my suggestion. And same thing with Lena Olin, who was. Oh,
I love her.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
But it was Valentine's Day season 1. We knew we had a feeling that the mother was going to show up at some point on the show because I mean she was dead. She was in a car accident, and on that show, it's like nobody's ever dead. Francie got shot 12 times, and Michael Vartan got shot 47 times. Came back for the finale. So I remember sitting there in the craft service area. And we were on stage 6. I can remember exactly. It's so funny how I can remember very specific things and then can't remember simple movies. J.J. Abrams, Sarah Kaplan, that came in, they were talking about the mother, and I knew this conversation was coming. And I had always thought, because of the way that J.J. cast the show, we always had these badass 60s and 70s and 80s guest stars coming in, like Richard Roundtree. And so it's like, these were the people that you wanted on the show. And they walked by and I said, and he was talking about the mother, and I turned to JJ and I had coffee in my hand. I said, you know, there's only really one good option for this role, right? And he goes, enlighten me. And I said, Lena Olin. And somebody who shall remain nameless said, oh, is that person, oh, is she even still alive? And I said, well, she was in, was it Vampire Lestat? No, the Queen of the Damned, Queen of the Damned. I said, well, I saw her in Queen of the Damned last night and walked off. Cut to, it was Lena Olin. And I will, and to April's credit, because a lot of times casting directors don't like it when people make suggestions.
Oh, sure,
and,
they want all the credit.
Yeah, but that's not April. April always was, she would be like, that was that sort of person's idea. That was that person's idea. She had her suggestion, which I wish could leak at some point. Her suggestion for who she had come up with. I mean, she just had, I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of actresses out there. But because my whole reason of having Lena was because of Romeo is Dying. Romeo's Dying, right? That was the movie she was in?
Yeah.
She was badass. The kill where she's like in the back seat. And so April had it, when she told me what her suggestion was, I was like, oh God, that's really good. And it was like a classically trained actress who had been in like one of the biggest movies of all time. And I was like, oh God, I think your suggestion's better than mine. But it's like, mine was more pop culture. And of course we loved it. But it was like, when I heard her suggestion, I was like, oh God, that's good. That's so good. And I wish that we had been able to put her somewhere else, like playing one of the Derevko sisters later. But we had, I mean, it was such a great time.
It's so interesting looking behind the curtain of the magic, how it all comes together, how it gets cast, how it happens. And this is all the things that this is great. It's a lot of things that people don't see.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things, like, especially when you're doing independent film, like you have to, like, obviously, like, I'm not going to get Sharon Stone for birthday cake. The only reason I probably could have gotten Joan Collins was because we had a really funny weekend together and we were constantly insulting each other the entire weekend. And it was like, that's the only reason that I would have gotten, because her manager was there to watch the entire thing go down. And the funny story about Joan Collins, I have to tell, Jackie was there too. I got to meet Jackie and Joan together. So we spent this weekend together. I was working as an assistant to an actress at the time, which we will talk about. But I had been out with my actor and we had shut down a bar the night before. And I had missed breakfast, and in comes Jackie Collins and sits down, and we're having this lovely talk. In comes the manager, and then in sweeps, this is the Palm Springs Renaissance Hotel, and so you have to step down into like the lobby here. Yeah. In sweeps, like Dynasty, Joan Collins. And she walks down the stairs and she looks at me and she goes, my God, you look like shit. And I said, and I look up, and I did, and I said, well, I was out late last night. And I said, I just woke up. She goes, my God, I was up at 5 o'clock this morning. And I said, what were you doing up at 5 o'clock this morning? Like, what would you possibly
That's something I would say.
And so we started, and so from that, we just started going back and forth. And I told her about a film that I was working on. And she's like, I said, I'll say it. It's a project about three old women. And so it's about three old women who do this thing. And she's, I could play an old woman.
Oh my goodness.
It's exactly what you want from college to be like. I mean, she's so funny. She's so funny. And then that night was this big dinner. And I can't remember what I think George Hamilton was with her. And so they're on stage presenting. And I think he made fun of her about something. And I laughed, but I laughed louder than anybody else. And this is her around the podium. Like, she was like, turns and looks. So much fun. But yeah, I think it's all about relationships and how you get to people. And I would suggest going through the managers first, because they tend to be kind of shaping the careers of other people. And like, I have an actress who is attached. I can tell you her name because we haven't, she's attached to my film and she definitely wants to do it. But she's on a show right now, and depending on the dates of her show and my show. But again, it's like one of those things where I went to the manager and she's like, she loved the script. It's 2 days of work for her. And it's the SAG ultra low budget. So she ain't doing it for the money. So it's possible if you got a good script.
Yeah. So tell us about Florida Girls. Like, first of all, why didn't you name it Georgia Girls?
Well, I didn't have anything to do with it. I just the casting director, Laura Chen, who created the show. Amazing actress, amazing writer. She created the show, and it was based on her experiences of living in Florida and as growing up in Florida. And if you're follow Laura Chen on the Instagram, because she's hilarious and she's an professional improv actress from California. She and the rest of the cast all work together doing improv together, and it was an honor to get to work on that show because her scripts are so funny. And what really breaks my heart for
They
her,
are.
it breaks my heart because we started casting season 2, and I remember it was the week after we finished Undertaker's Wife the last week of February, and I came back to Georgia to cast. I was going to get started in Savannah by doing the first in-person reads for Florida Girls. And then at the end of that Friday, the production manager walked into my office and he goes, I think we're going to take a week off because of this COVID thing. And then 1 week became 2 weeks, became 6 weeks, we've been canceled. So it's there's no season 2 at this point, unless Laura finds another place to sell it. But there was one script this season. It was going to be 10 episodes this season. And it was one of the best scripts I've ever read, comedy-wise. It was kind of like back in the 80s when they're like a very special Facts of Life or a very special, because it was people would have been talking about this. She probably would have been on the cover of TV Guide. People would have been talking about this episode.
So it'll probably happen. We just
I
gotta
hope
put it
it
out.
does. It's like, as they're trying to find content and whatnot, I really hope it does. And, even if she has to move it to Florida, but we shot the first season in Savannah, but she's somebody who definitely knows what she wants. And her now husband is one of the producers on the show. And they just work really great together. And I hope she gets it because she was so lovely to work with. And
there was one scene I saw that I was just laughing hysterical when the mother opened up the trailer home and then all of a sudden, Mom, the way she said it, and then they just started walking in, and it was just the characters, the chemistry was unbelievable in it.
Yeah. I mean, it all across the board, and how she was taking the character, because her character Shelby was, going to college, and then what was going to happen with all of those characters in season 2. It was such a great arc. And then I think we all got a little worried at first because they were big. Every episode was bigger and bigger next season. There was I shouldn't be talking about what the stories were, but it was a lot of extras, and in COVID times, it's really hard to shoot anything with more than 10, 15 people. So it's right. I remember us talking about, well, how are they going to shoot this when we get, this is before we got canceled, and how are we going to shoot this giant scene? And
well, you put a green screen behind you and just send everybody the stuff. That's what we were told. Let's do it. You can make it happen.
Yeah, it's being done. We were talking to somebody. They sent them the props, the costumes, everything, and they literally filmed a Zoom and blended in the editing. They made it look like people were together. So
it can be done.
Yeah. Wow.
That's
I just think
the beauty of drama and acting. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just
the magic of the entertainment industry. I love that people have not given up, and everybody's come together and really are pivoting to find new ways to get the material out to
that's going to be the hard
reads.
Because normally you have a crew of I think our crew of on Undertaker's Wife, we had a crew of 25 that we carried every day.
Right.
And my crew on installation is a crew of 8, and 2 of those people will never see the set. They will be outside, and they'll be we call them pods. And so and me directing the movie and acting in it, that's one less person that's in the pod. But we're gonna have myself and the other lead actor, we're gonna have to quarantine together for 2 weeks, maybe, leading up to it. And then we've scheduled it as such where we're in the first 4 days, it's just the 2 of us. And as we start adding the other people in, it's 10-day shoot. So by the end of it, we should be clear. But everybody has to get COVID tested in advance. And
you should film that and have that be like a a
A
little
docu.
docu-series.
Exactly.
We are. We're gonna do a documentary.
So people see just what you guys have to go through to make something happen just so that we could have entertainment. You
We are.
understand?
It's funny that you should mention that because we have an investor who, like, he was potentially coming on board for the balance of what we needed. And as I was walking out, this is last Wednesday, I was in Palm Springs. I turned to Zach Ivy, who's one of my producers, and I said, you know, not to throw a wrench in this, but what we could do is run one other camera and then shoot a documentary about this whole thing. And then that way, when we play the festival circuit, we could have the film and the documentary be two different pieces because you could watch the movie and then watch the documentary the next night.
Oh,
And
Netflix would pick that up.
Yeah.
well, so my investor has a new platform that he's trying to get started, you know, an online streaming platform. And I said, and then he can just have the documentary for free. I don't care. Just give me your money, and then we'll give you the documentary for free after we run the festival circuit. I'll just use it as a marketing tool. And so we pitched that to the investor. He's like, yeah. So
Awesome.
So we'll see. Yeah, so we are definitely going to be doing the documentary because I think it'd be interesting to see, like, how do you shoot a film with 8 people for 125,000?
So many people, believe me, will want to see that because it's such a new thing.
Yeah.
How do you get investors to actually fund? Because I'm sure they're going to ask me that. Like, why didn't you ask him that?
Well,
people watch the videos and then they're like, why didn't you ask them that? Just ad lib.
I'm in a different situation because Zach had my other co-producer. He had an investor that he works with who basically invests in all of his stuff. And then back to Darlene, you know, there was first in money on that movie. And some of it had to be spent because of the reading that we did in LA with Hari and Debbie and Charles Melton and Ellen Barkin. Some of it had to be spent on legal. But I called my investor and I said, look, Darlene's never going to happen. And she wasn't my investor. She was part of another bad situation. But she was the first in money, and somebody took that woman's money, and so she had already, you know, lost a lot of money already. And so I called her and I said, Darlene is not going to happen, but you could take the money that we have left over and put it in this movie, and then it's a much different budget. And Darlene was like a $1.5 million budget. This is $125,000. So her point of return is going to be far greater. She's like, I'm in. So that's how. But it's investing sucks. I mean, I would suggest doing readings of your script and inviting investors. You know, back when we can gather again, do wine and cheese parties and or do a Zoom reading, a really good Zoom reading, and of your script. And
I absolutely love you. I think you're amazing. So I'm serious. You're gonna. You have a lot of talent. You should be teaching.
Thanks.
We'd love to have you come on to we're doing an artist development for artists at Mupo. So
great.
Love to invite you to guest.
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say he has so much talent, and he's just, I could, you know, it's one thing that's amazing about you is that you've done everything. So not many people get to do everything. Like you're a casting director, you're a director, you're a writer, you're an actor. I mean, you hit every single thing you possibly could be. And
I'm grateful that and the only way that I could have done it all is had I done extras casting, because extras casting is the most disrespected job on a set. Mm-hmm. We fall below the totem pole of a PA on set. No one wants to, you know, we get paid the least amount of money. We work the most amount of hours. I mean, I don't do extras casting anymore, but it was a great doctorate in film production because we're the people that have to cast 500 people for a Civil War reenactment scene who fit the clothes, who don't have tattoos, who can grow out their scar. I mean, imagine being human resources for that, getting the people there, making sure they're not crazy and they're not going to kill one of the cast members, which, I mean, you know, and then also we are beholden to these people because they are making minimum wage a day, unless they're a union extra. So it's like I very much respect the people that come and work for me and give of their time to sit on set, to sit in holding all day. It's not boring. You get yelled at by everybody. But I'm the only position in the entire call sheet where I can be working on 14 television shows and 5 feature films at once. Because at Central Casting, when I left, I was casting 14 television shows. 14 television shows and 5 feature films. And wow. And it's just, you know, extras casting gets looked at as like being McDonald's. You know, you call in your order and then they expect their people to show up. And then they get yelled, then you get yelled at if the person in the party scene for Alias didn't bring the right clothes. Like we dress them, like we go through their closets. So I learned a lot about having to deal with difficult personalities. You know, being on set and getting to watch the background work taught me, I would always stand behind the director in the video village and pay attention and watch as they were directing, as they were producing. And when you're sitting in those production meetings and you're hearing about stunts and you're hearing about the coordination of this and where base camp's going to be and how it's an invaluable experience. And to be able in extras casting, central casting specifically, when I was at a different production meeting, sometimes 2 or 3 a day, and then still having to cast, I had no social life for 6 years. But it was worth it because it made me a good producer.
You have an incredible training that you've had that gave you, that was like the cast, being in extras casting. Extras, I look at it, I would say it's the backdrop to the film. Without that backdrop, without the everything looking right, you could have actors standing in a parking lot and it doesn't look it doesn't look right unless you have all that filled in space. So it seems like it gave you a very well-rounded culture of the industry, and you seem very actor friendly too. So it's great. Yeah, it's all. It's probably going back to building relationships.
Yeah, and it's funny because you're talking about Undertaker's wife. I remember the first day, like when I got done with the day, and I was like turning around, like, well, does anybody need any help? And they're like, and then my first AD walked over to me and she goes, "Get in the van and go home." But no, this is what they do. Like you don't clean up. You have to go home now. And I remember getting in the van and was like, this is easy. Like all I have to do is just not get in. I have to keep everybody alive. And tell them what I want, and then everybody does it. And it's like, and I was like, I said it probably every single day. I said, extras casting was way, way, way harder than directing a movie. Way harder. Way, 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 way harder. I mean, yeah, sometimes you're dealing with difficult actors, or you're trying to like get into their head to like defuse the bomb. But that's a skill that I had learned, you know, I in college, I studied criminal psychology as well as film. So like that was easy for me. And also when you're dealing with actors, when you're dealing with extras, you're used to dealing with difficult people. So it's like you can never show fear. You know, you've got to go in and you've got to be assertive and you're like, no, this is what we're doing. And but also I think as an actor and having studied like all the books that I've read, John Badham, Judith Weston, Sidney Lumet, all of these books about how to deal with actors, the relationship with the actor on set, just the basics of direction. Like you get the actor into the room, let's run the scene, let's just run the scene, see what you want to do, like give them the time to feel the space, and then you bring in the camera people, and then you're like, so what I'm seeing is this and this and this, and then you ask the actors, are you comfortable with that? Are we cool with that? And they're like, yeah, great. I'm like, great, go get made up. Go do whatever you got to do to change. Crew takes over. And then all you're having to do is sit behind the monitor. I'm like, that's great. Let's take it this way. Like you're directing people, but it's way easier than any show I ever worked in extras casting, because you're not having to deal with difficult personalities. You're not dealing with the amount of hours. Okay. And that's why I'm grateful for extras casting. It's like training for an Ironman and then doing a 5K. That's what it's like.
Do you recommend for actors starting out do you recommend them doing extra work? Is that stigma gone of if you're an extra, you're never going to get a leading role?
This is what I don't understand. And I have every panel that I sit in on, and I think that's probably why I'm not working. Now that I think about it. That's probably why I'm not working. I should probably stop saying this, but I will fight to the death for it. Because I get invited to a lot of like casting director panels, and they'll ask that question. It's like, and they will always say no, we don't cast people who have been extras on the show. And I find that at one point I turned to one of them and I said, how do you know if they've been an extra on the show? Are you paying attention to every single background artist and making a list of who's been on the show? Were you making a note as to that person crossed behind Emily Van Camp on The Resident? Is that what you're doing? Do you have this list? Is that what you're doing? No, nobody's paying attention to the background. Like, don't put it on your resume. And if you're auditioning a lot and you've got to do fast turnarounds on auditions, then don't dedicate yourself all day on set. But if you're getting started out, it's the best way. Again, getting started, it's the best way to learn the lingo on set, to match having to hit your mark time and time and time again. It's something that gets ingrained in you when you're having to redo the same scene over and over and over again as an actor when you're doing dialogue. Alan Arkush has this funny line in the Cross and Jordan reunion where he's like, guess which cast member didn't know they had to hit a mark their first day on set? And it was Catherine Hahn, who had never, she had been studied at Northwestern and had been picked out of the Northwestern program, the acting, and that's how she got cast in the show. But Catherine had never been on a film set before. And now she's TV and movie star Catherine Hahn. So you learn by doing with that. And yes, the stigma is always still there, but I will swear, I will bet you $1 million there is not one single casting director who is a member of the CSA who has ever looked at a TV show and said, wait a second, that person auditioned for me last week. Never happened. So I don't know why they create. I can tell you the fact that casting directors do not look at extras casting as casting. I've had that thrown in my face a lot. You're not really a casting director, you're an extras casting director. And I'm like, no, I'm the person that gets brought in when the person that you hired who did take 72, and they hired that person and now they can't talk. So I'm the person that's having to walk through extras holding and having to tap on somebody's little head and get a performance out of them. But I'm not casting.
Good for you.
Well said.
The stigma is there, but I still say, but also like that situation just there. It happened probably 12 times on Mercy Street where they upgraded an extra to a principal part. And it happens. It happens all the time. And then they come to me and they're like, we gotta upgrade one of the extras. And who knows the extras? Who knows their experience? Who's seen their resumes? That's me. But I'm not casting.
So your Christmas movie you were doing, The Shooter, obviously, was it postponed? I mean,
yeah. So
when are you going to restart it?
Well, hopefully it gets restarted next year. The thing with that movie was COVID killed it. It's like in July, I went back to LA. David Brown was supposed to produce my movie, The Intelligent, but he had this other script. So he said, let's do this one first because this will come out by the end of the year. And then it was a whole bunch of back and forth about visas because they were going to shoot in Toronto because, COVID was blowing up all over the place. Couldn't shoot in California because the numbers had gone up. We'll shoot in Toronto. They couldn't get my passport there. If I went to Chicago, I think I had to quarantine for 14 days. If I went up to New York, so then we'll shoot in Atlanta. So we cast the entire movie. No, we'll just wait until next year. So I have not worked on more movies than I have.
Have you ever thought of renting in Newark, New Jersey? They have the old TV studios, and the tax rate is unbelievable there. And you could rent a studio there and just do your whole film.
They have talked about. We were supposed to shoot after this whole thing happened with the Christmas movie. David moved to New York, to Brooklyn. So he said rewrite the script for Brooklyn. So we got an actress attached, and we were supposed to start shooting November 4th. And about October 12th. He texted me, he's like, the numbers keep going up. And I didn't know what that meant. I was like, great. I thought he meant the budget numbers were going up. And then I mentioned something about Brooklyn and he said, yeah, no, the numbers are going up. And I said, what does that mean the numbers are going up? He goes, well, right now you can't have a gathering of more than 20 people in Brooklyn. I said, but our crew is more than 20 people. And he said, yeah, I know. And I was like, the numbers aren't going to magically go down in the next 2 weeks. So that's why we pushed The Intelligent now to after installation. So I'll do that hopefully in March in LA.
Well, if you come to New Jersey, I'll get you some people if you need some extras.
Thank
I'll
you.
make some phone calls. Get some of my wrestlers. I just want to come and watch you in action. My God, that would be really cool.
Nice.
They should just do something just on you, like a documentary just on you.
You'll see the docu-series that they did called "Making Up" for Undertaker's wife. It's pretty much about me, but it's about the.
Now you're friends with a very legendary actress, Helen Shaver. Uh, Tell us about that how that came about, and you also she joined you on the Atlanta Actors Summit,
Yeah, God, you have
the
done your
Zoom.
research on
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah, she. I met her on Judging Amy. She was my executive producer and producing director. And what I always admired about her was that she was cool as a cucumber. Like there was never, and of course that whole set was, but her being an actress, a director, and having the whole mindset. Like I really, it was interesting to watch production through her eyes because being an actress, she was very respectful for the other actresses, understanding what they have to go through, you know, of a certain age, going through on a major show like that. And so I remember a lot of conversations about like, oh, we should move her scenes earlier in the day so she's not there until, you know, 4 o'clock in the morning. There's a lot of consideration like that. And Amy, I think Amy had Amy was pregnant at one point, so like we were dealing with that as well. And uh, she was great, and I loved her to death. And it was, I can't remember how many seasons I was on that show, but it was enough to where we were still friends. Like when years later, when I did Birthday Cake, and I reached out to her manager and I said, I had this movie. I was wondering, and I don't know why Helen came to mind. Oh, I know why. Because I had produced a stage reading of the Laramie Project with her, and she agreed to do it. It was we did it at Hollywood United Methodist Church as a benefit for the Matthew Shepard Foundation. So it was like her and Zachary Quinto and Jim Parsons and Michael Weatherly and Polly Perrette from NCIS and James Cromwell, Julie Benz. It was a great cast. And so she did that. So I sent the script to her agent, and she looked at and again, this was SAG ultra low. It was like $100 a day. And I was hoping that Helen was in California because she lives part-time in Canada. And her agent, her manager, who she's been with her forever, she said, well, let her look at it. The rate's really low. And I said, well, I wish I could do more, but I can't. And I just, it is what it is. It's a $15,000 budget. She called me back and she said, here's what we're going to do. Helen's going to fly herself from Canada to be in your movie. Wow. But you have to pay for the hotel room. I'm like, done. And she's incredible. She has this.
So giving.
Beth Grant wanted to play the role, but she couldn't because of and I know Beth, and Beth's local. So it's like we didn't, again, like engaging Helen. Of course, I love her, but I never put the impetus on somebody to be like, hey, fly yourself from Canada to be in my movie. But it's a 7-page monologue that she has in the middle of the movie. And it's just, there was not a dry eye in the house at any festival that we played. And she talked about that in the summit yesterday. She's the best. I mean, she loves actors, but like one of the things that I couldn't get her to really, like, I was asking her about it. She's like, oh, Chad, it's just play. And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. She did Orphan Black. She did Lovecraft Country. She did Snowpiercer. She did Westworld. And so my whole thing was like, how do you direct these gigantic, epic things where it's a green screen? How do you direct an actor to be like, point to that thing is going to be something else? How do you direct an actress who's working against a double? And then not only on Orphan Black, Tatiana Maslany, not only is she acting against her one double, but then she has to pretend she's 3 other people in the room that aren't even there. Like, how do you direct that? And her answer was, oh, it's just play. Like, that's it. Wow. It's just play.
That's beautiful.
She's the best.
That's just incredible. You have your energy is amazing, and you are just a wealth of just giving. I cannot. I'm excited for everyone that gets to have the opportunity to watch this, to hear what you have to share. This next question, and I wanted to ask you. It's a bit personal, if you're okay with it.
Okay.
It's part of your journey story, that something that you went through a while back, and you continued to work as if everything was fine. You know what I'm,
I know.
are you okay with it?
Yeah, no,
Sharing about it? I just think that it really would be helpful
yeah.
to people that perhaps go through this. We know in the industry, a lot of people sometimes have illness and they feel very afraid to share about it.
Yeah, I think this is my 12th year or 13th year being in remission. But I had testicular cancer, and I found it Halloween night. So for years I hated Halloween, and now just kind of now it's just a thing. But I was in the middle of producing a documentary. Jill Hennessy had put me in touch with a friend of hers who needed a line producer, a production manager type, for a documentary she was doing about breast cancer, and so for 6 months, we were traveling all over the country: San Francisco, New York, Chicago, DC. Like all we were doing was flying and taping these people. And I can't even watch the documentary at this point. But and then I was pitching a TV show with Sean Hayes and Todd Milliner as well. And all over the country, doing all these things. And I was training for a marathon, and I was the pace group leader. And we were not a very fast group, but we would train out of Griffith Park. And at one point, I was like, guys, you're going too fast. You're going too fast. And finally, like the second slowest person was like, Chad, we're really not going that fast. And I was like, oh, I must be fatigued. That must be what it is. Like I'm just fatigued because of traveling and everything. And then I found the lump. And then as soon as you find that lump, you know what it is. Like it's not good. And so, but of course, protocols, they have to put you on these high-powered antibiotics, and then that doesn't do anything. Then you're just sick, and then a lot of specialists and stuff. And then in order for them to biopsy it, they have to take it out. And so I had to have surgery. And as I'm going through this whole thing, I'm learning about protocols. I'm learning about insurance. When people say, you're fighting cancer, you're really just fighting the insurance company. That's what you're fighting. You're fighting the disappointment in people that are going to let you down. The friends that you expect will be there. Those are the that's the inner dialogue that you're making, because people don't know how to respond to people when they hear that. I lost a lot of people. Like, I was afraid you were going to die. Like, so you stopped talking to me? And
when you need the most.
Yeah. And it's like, I just need you to be present. Like, that's all I need. Like, and if I need to vent, I need you to let me vent. But if I tell you to go home, I need you to go home. So I had like a core group of really great friends who they took care of me that first night. And I was like, I need you to go home. I just need to be alone. And they did. It's like I can walk but I walked with like this weird limp because of where they cut you for a few months. And my friend Katie Bowles decided it'd be good for us to go hiking. So I thought we were doing like a little hike. And the bitch took me on an 8-mile hike up in Santa Monica. I'm like, I'm gonna die up here.
Wow.
Weeks after it was hilarious. We have photos. We still laugh about it. She's like, oh, I thought you'd be okay. And I was like, it was 8 miles, Katie. 8 miles. But that's exactly what I needed, because I was finishing off this documentary and I would have to go. And of course, one of the weird things that happened was this happened around Christmas time. So I went in, I met with my surgeon, did the surgery, and then my general, I think was the one, because it was 2 different people. I went in to meet with him. And and I remember him checking me, and he goes, so are you doing chemo or radiation? And I just started laughing, and I went, and this is after Christmas, and like it's been 3 weeks after surgery. And he looks up and he goes, what? I was like, what are you talking about? Am I doing chemo or radiation? He's like, you called that number that I gave you, right? And I was like, yeah, he didn't call me back. I just thought it was like an exit interview. Like, what was your experience with cancer? And I figured I passed. And he's like, and he walks out, like just turns and walks out of the room. And comes back 10 minutes later and he hands me a piece of paper and he goes, the second you walk out of my office, you have to call this number. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, I can't, it's the second. So it's all that protocol stuff that, one person can't tell you. So I call this, he's waiting by the phone. And so I call this guy, he's like, hey, Bunny, I'm so sorry. We need to get you in here for chemo immediately. I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, you were supposed to start chemo 3 weeks ago. Because apparently during surgery, some of it spilled into my blood. And so I go in and I start the whole chemo, and I had like long hair at the time. And so I'm like, I don't want to lose my hair. And Peter Page, who was in my movie groom's cake and birthday cake. He's an actor. He's on Queer as Folk. He developed the show The Fosters. Peter was starting to lose his hair, so Peter shaved his hair, his head in solidarity. And I said, Peter, that's sweet, but I'm not shaving my head until it falls out. And my oncologist told me, he's like, you know, your hair might not fall out. So I feel like I willed my hair to stay. And like, you know, definitely there was like a lot of hair on my pillow. I mean, not like a wig, but like, oh, this is a lot of hair. And I had like 3 or 4 rounds of chemo. And like every time he would come in and be like, oh, your hair hasn't, you still got your hair. Second time, are you going to chemo? I'm like, you literally walked me across the hall. Do you think I'm like going in and then walking out? And the 4th time he walked in, he opened the door and he stopped. And he goes, are you going to chemo? I said, you asked me this last time. And he walks over and he starts pulling on my hair. I said, what are you doing? And he's like, I said, you said my hair might not fall out. He goes, you should be completely bald. That's just something we tell people. And I think it was probably that visit or the next one where I was on my phone dealing with a film. And he said, would you please put your phone down? He goes, you're acting like this is just a major inconvenience for you. And I looked up at him and I said, that's what this is, a major inconvenience for me. And I just couldn't get into the mindset of like, I'm going to die. I couldn't get into the mindset of, I had enough of like dealing with friends that had abandoned me. So, and I'm working, and all day long, all I'm doing is dealing about a documentary about cancer. Like there was this whole long thing where I was like, did I catch cancer? Like did it jump off a petri dish in one of the rooms that we were in and like attach itself to my balls? And so that was, and I started a blog about the whole thing, and I had a lot of people reaching out to me because of that. And I just felt like that was the only way, you know, I'd always been doing these charity runs for AIDS Project Los Angeles. And so the next year I got involved with the Lance Armstrong, Livestrong's Foundation. And I mean, that's all I knew how to do. Like I had been told like, you're in remission, you know, you're done with chemo. And so it definitely affected me psychologically for, you know, years. Like I didn't date for years. And it did mess with my head and my body. And like, I gained a lot of weight. And I'm like, I'm the only person I know that goes through cancer and gains 25 pounds. And, but I think in the long run, it definitely made me a lot stronger person, in what I would put up with and what I wouldn't put up with. And, my friends and I used to joke that it turned me into a monster in a good way, you know, because, it definitely put my whole life in perspective.
It seems like you had such by the way, you're so brave and so strong. My mom had was a breast cancer survivor when she was alive, and I did lose a good friend to it. But that's amazing how you kept your strength, your faith, you willed your hair. I really believe you willed that hair to stay.
Yeah.
So it's incredible. What would you say to friends of you know, people going through that? What do you say to someone?
Oh God. So I had it was funny. I did a whole page on my blog, and for some reason, I mean, I'm a person of faith, but like for me, like the one thing that people would say to me was like, I'm praying for you. And I don't know why that was like the thing. It's like, you can say you're in my prayers or you're in my thoughts, but I'm praying for you just felt like it was an affront. Like it was just like, you're over there. And I don't know why that was the big thing for me, but it was like people say, I'm praying for you. And maybe it's a whole past, like as a child growing up and hearing people say, I'm praying for you. Like I'm doing something wrong, you know? I think that probably is where it comes from more than anything. Cause I can remember my brother and I, like growing up, like people saying like, I'm praying for you every time. I remember thinking like, well, could you stop? Because clearly something's not right. Like, what are you doing? It's not working. And I think that's where it came from more than anything. But I think the most important thing is just being present for someone and letting them know, please let me know if there's anything that I can do for you. And then surprising them with things like, you know, food or like little gifts. Like I had 2 wonderful friends that gave me this blanket and, you know, little things that you never forget about. Offering, you know, can I give you a ride to chemo? Can I give you a ride and sit with you in the office? It's like those things. Now it's a little more dangerous because of immune systems and COVID and all that. Like you can't wait in a waiting room, but even dropping somebody off because you know, with chemo, like you have to have somebody drive you home. And or driving you to appointments and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Those are huge and valuable things that people don't understand. And like, even like if they're going through chemo, like giving them little gifts, like books or stuff that they can read, or giving them an iTunes gift certificate so they can download a movie to watch on their iPad, or things like that. That when you're, because that's the worst. It's like, I always hate that. Why do they always do it the same way? It's like, we're all sitting in the big circle of death. It's like, and I was always the youngest person there. And they would always look at me like, why does he still have his hair? It's like,
Right.
I'm like, can't we just do this privately? Like, can't you just pull a curtain around me, stick me in a closet somewhere? Like, and this is not bonding. Like, I mean, we're like all miserable together, and we're not talking. We're just all sitting there like on our iPads, like going through it. So just those are the things that I think are important. And also I did a bad thing, and I should probably reach back out to this person and apologize. But everything that I was going through, I had huge medical bills, huge medical bills. And I never asked for a GoFundMe, but I mean, that's, everybody needs help at some point. But after I'd gone through the whole thing, people started hitting me up to donate to their cancer charities. And I was like, do you have any idea how much I'm donating to cancer already? Like, I have so many, and I remember like snapping on somebody, like, I'm paying off all these cancer bills. Like, I'm sorry, I can't donate to your cancer charity. I'm like, why would you even do that? But that person never talked to me after that. So that'd be another thing. Like, to maybe not suggest cancer charities if you, for donations when somebody's going through cancer. It's like, just because they're going through it doesn't mean they're going to donate money to you, because we have huge thousands of dollars in medical bills.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for giving us a little bit insight to that moment.
And I wanted to ask about your elbow.
Oh God, my deformed elbow. And yeah, that's what's funny is like, that's the biggest hit on my YouTube page, because I recorded the whole thing about my elbows like 7 years ago. I fell down the stairs in my old loft and I broke my elbow, but I didn't know it was broke. And then I had to get it taken care of. And I was casting a commercial at the time. It was the worst client I've ever dealt with. And I'm on the phone, and the doctor walks in, and I'm like and like they're doing X-rays of my elbow, and he's like, "Would you please hang up?" And this client was a monster. And I said, "I've got to deal with this call." And the doctor grabbed my phone and goes, "He'll have to call you back. He's in the emergency room right now." And he hangs up, and he goes, "Do you want the bad news or the bad news?" And I was like, "I guess the bad news." He's like, "The bad news is your elbow is broken. The bad news is you're going to have surgery." Because it wasn't even like the tip of it had broken off. And I'm like, oh God, here we go again. Like, all I'm doing is spending money on surgeries. And it was I can't remember what the name of it is, but I posted about my whole recovery with it, like all my therapy and everything. And so people that break their elbows, everybody finds my YouTube page, and I get all these comments like, when were you able to, like, I feel like I'm like the spokesperson for breaking your elbow.
That's hilarious. You and I are a team. You got the elbow, I got the hand. I'm the only person I know that broke her toe and broke her hand that required surgery 3 weeks apart at home during COVID.
So I have heart.
Mm-hmm. So I have a metal plate and pins in my hand.
Oh my! I broke I broke my wrist in Palm Springs, and it's finally back to normal. But I tripped over a sidewalk. I mean, it wasn't even anything glamorous. I tripped over a sidewalk and splattered my face open. And
okay. And we're not doing slumbers together, because we're just going to end up injured, the two of us.
I had to have one of those hand braces for months, and they talked about like having to do surgery on it. And I can't imagine. I'm so glad I didn't have that, because it's surgery. I'd rather have an elbow.
Oh, it brings you to your knees. Yeah, fills you with tears. But I'm doing well and getting all my strength back, and so you keep going.
Yeah,
you keep going. Oh, thank you so much for joining us. It has been an incredible pleasure to have you. Such a treat. So many great nuggets for a lot of aspiring artists out there, and for your fans, and just so many wonderful conversations. We'd love having you. So thank you. And before we
Definitely.
wrap it up, I usually do a fill in the sentence. So I start the sentence and you finish it.
Great.
Ready?
Ready.
All right. My big audacious goal is.
My big audacious goal is to be happy in life.
My funniest moment.
It wasn't funny at the time, but it's something that everybody keeps bringing up. In fact, it was brought up twice on the Crossing Jordan Zoom. My funniest moment is when I got pulled out of the airport line by the TSA for saying I thought we were blowing up the CIA on Tuesday. That's what I planned for.
Oh, classic.
Oh my God.
It was during the whole it was right the year after 9/11, and I was going home for Christmas, and I'd already missed my flight because stupid American Airlines, they were on concourses 3 and 5 at the time, and I was on the wrong concourse both times, and so I missed my flight. I had to get rerouted. I'm in the airport for 5 hours, and this guy kept like walking like within like 5 people, like he's walking beside of me. It was like, dude, I have been in this line for hours, and if you think that you're gonna get in front of me, I'm gonna cut you. And I had a friend who was on the TV show The Real World, and so he's behind me. So we're talking the entire time about how he was going home to Chicago, I was going to Atlanta, and so this guy kept like, and I turned around to Kyle and I was like, I swear to God, if this guy thinks he's cutting in front of me after me being here for hours, he's got another thing coming. And so my phone rings, and we were shooting the episode of Alias where we blow. No, this may have been 2002 or 3. It was the Super Bowl episode. It's the episode where we blew up the SD6. And so Priscilla, and I'll never forget Priscilla, who was our production coordinator. It's been nearly 20 years. She called me, and my phone rings, and I answer the phone. I was like, I'm getting ready to go through security, make this fast. Because I was like 5 people away from going through security. And she goes, hey, you said that you wanted to know if we had any changes, and we've had a big change. I was like, what's the change? And she goes, we're blowing up the SD6 on Monday. I said, I thought we were blowing up the SD6 on Tuesday. That's what I planned for. The CIA on Tuesday.
Oh.
And so this guy walking around, he grabbed me by my arm and goes, security! And the way that he pulled me out of line, I thought he was pulling me to take me to the front of the line because he knew that I had been there for hours. And he walked me right past that and into a secured room. And it was a glass wall. Meanwhile, Kyle was walking through, like watching the whole thing go down. He made me take my shirt off, with my bag, and like I finally was like, I know what this is about. And he's like, what do you think this is about? And I said, well, I was on the phone when you so rudely interrupted me. And I said that we were blowing up the CIA on Tuesday because that's what I planned for. Because I'm the extras casting director on the TV show Alias. And I pulled all of the SWAT team members off the movie SWAT for Tuesday. And now I've got to replace them all. You're welcome to go through my script bag because the script is in there. And you could read my detailed plans about how we're blowing up the SD6. And he starts flipping through it. I'm so impatient at this point, and I'm like, I can't believe the absurdity of this. And they have my badges that has the Alias badge on it, the Disney badge on it, and I went, it's towards the back. And he goes to the back, and like they look at each other, and like it's like they didn't even laugh or anything. He's like, get dressed. And so I put my shirt back on. They didn't even check me in, and he just kind of walked me out and pushed me. And Kyle was behind me. He was waiting the entire time. He's like, dude, what was this? We were not talking about this. We were not talking about this in the airport. And so I walk into the Starbucks that was right there. And I walk in, and all I wanted was coffee. I hadn't had coffee all morning long. I said, I'd like a grande black coffee. And I said, I'm sorry, sir, we're out of coffee. And I burst into tears. I lost my mind at that point. I was like, all I want is a coffee. He's a terrorist. And but it was funny because they brought that up. Steve Valentine brought it up, and somebody else brought it up later. But then Jennifer Garner brought it up on Regis, and I think it was Kathy Lee at the time. I think it was before Kelly. She brought it up on the TV show, and my phone blew up that morning with all these people in Alabama calling me like hours early, like, you can tell us trying to blow up CIA. I was like, oh God. So
Okay, Chet is not blowing up the CIA, by the way, so don't come and drag him off the show.
I'm on a list for like whenever I check in, they pull me aside. I'm like, just do it.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Oh, it's been a pleasure. That is just some funny stories you have. I bet you have a whole lot more too. It's been great having you. Thank you so much again for taking the time. We could talk to you forever. Seriously, you are amazing. And thank you for being so generous and with a lot of the tips for the people out there that are really, really looking to do what you do and be in this industry. Can you please share your upcoming to look fors for people
Yeah,
to
so Undertaker's Wife will be, I think it's will be released shortly after March. I think we're delivering the movie in March. And then I will have start shooting installation the last week of January. And we're hoping for a quick turnaround because we want to aim for the Cannes Film Festival. So it'll play the festival circuit first. And then I'll start shooting The Intelligent in March. So hopefully by the end of 2021.
Excellent.
Beautiful.
And you can subscribe, follow, like, put lots of hearts for Chad on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Chad Darnell. And as always, thank you for tuning in to Mupo and Friends. This is Holly Lombardi with our CEO mastermind, Michele Mupo, and our special guest, Chad Darnell. And we are over and out.